that both nations and societies must be built on a solid foundation, or what I call the three pillars. For there can be no development without security, and there can be no security without development. And no society can long prosper without respect for human rights and the rule of law. And I think this fundamental basis for building sound nations is extremely important as we move forward. And it was also in the same year, in 2000, when I launched the Global Compact at the Global Economic Forum in Davos when I was Secretary General. The Compact is a strategic initiative for business that are committed to aligning their operations and strategies with 10 principles which are universally accepted in areas of human rights, labor, and the environment. There were 9 principles, and we eventually added a 10th one, anti-corruption principle. It was, if you wish, the business's equivalent of the Millennium Declaration. Business was to, in the 21st century, I felt they should look ahead with shared values and something that all of them can sign on to. We also invited trade unions and civil society to join the Compact. Initially, we had 47 companies. 47 companies were present at the lunch. And today we have 7,500 businesses and non-business signatories in more than 135 countries. These companies represent nearly every industry and sector and hail from developed, emerging, and developing countries. And this is and there are some here in Texas who have signed on to this compact. Businesses agreed to embrace and support and ascribe to the protection of human rights and ensure that they are not complicit in human rights abuses. The business leaders also vowed to uphold the freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, and to eliminate all forms of forced and child labor, and to eliminate discrimination. They also agreed to promote greater environmental responsibility, to take precautions towards emerging challenges, and invest in development and infusion of environmentally friendly technologies. Since the compact was established, many companies have teamed up with governments, with civil society, with universities and foundations, and done a lot for the society. I can give you a few examples. For example, when we set up the Global Fund to fight HIV/AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis, the original target I set was 5 billion. We've raised over 22 billion today, and in fact, with the US contribution, which the US government offers to countries in the Caribbean over and above the fund, is perhaps double that amount. But when we started, we wanted to reach people who had the disease, who were living in the poor countries and did not have the means. And it was very painful. My wife and I would travel to these countries, and sometimes we'll go to a hospital, and you look at a man in the street, a man in bed with the disease, living with HIV/AIDS, who knows that there is medication somewhere in the world that could save him or his wife if they had the money. And because they were poor, it was a death sentence, when HIV/AIDS was no longer a death sentence in the North. So the whole idea was to use this money to ensure that they got the antiretroviral treatment. And I called a meeting of the chairman of the 7 biggest pharmaceutical companies in Amsterdam. We met in Amsterdam with the head of World Health Organization. And I said, gentlemen, unfortunately there were only men, there was no woman amongst them. I said, gentlemen, we have a problem and we need your help. We would want you to find a way of reducing the medication so that it could be affordable to the poor in the third world. It was a very interesting meeting. One of them said, well, I'm not sure I want to discuss this issue. I said, but you are the meeting. Why aren't you going to discuss it? He turned to his lawyer, who said we'll be accused of price fixing. The other one said, I don't have my lawyer with me. So the conversation continued. And I said, price fixing means banding together to demand higher prices and maximize your profits. I have brought you here to lose money. I brought you here to cut. I brought you here to cut your prices so that we can help the poor. So I don't see the issue of the legal issue you've raised. And at that time, some of you may know, the same pharmaceutical company was suing Nelson Mandela in court in Johannesburg. And why were they suing Mandela? Because Mandela had decided that he was going to use compulsory licensing and produce a generic version of the medication to treat his people. So they accused him of busting the law, particularly intellectual property rights. So I told them, I said, I'm not a public relations expert. I don't know who works for you, but to go and sue Nelson Mandela in a South African court on HIV/AIDS, if you win,